pallbearers from the field. Last with the handles. Lift and stand in place while they remove the carpet underneath. We're going to place the casket on the rollers and pass the handle to the pallbearer in front of you.
Friends, at this time we are going to begin the service of Mrs. Rolla Ash of blessed memory. The family just performed the ancient act of Kriya prior to the escorting of the casket. Officiating our service today is Rabbi Meir Shimon Moskowitz from the Chabad of Northbrook. Just a gentle reminder before we begin, if you could please make sure our phones are actually off.
We are gathered here this morning to pay our respects, honor the life, and mourn the passing of Mrs. Rolla Ash, Rivka Bas Yaakov. In Hebrew, the word for a funeral is levaya, and levaya literally means to accompany, because unlike in the English word funeral, finale, the end, in Judaism, we highlight the eternity of the soul. And therefore, when it comes to a time of a funeral, we are escorting the soul of Rolla from one world to the next. And of course, her soul, her memory, and her life is very much with us and close to our heart. I'll begin with the reciting of a chapter, a psalm, first in Hebrew, and then in English, Psalm number 1. Ashrei ha'ish asher loy halach ba'atzas rishayim uvederech chatayim loy amad uvemoishav leitzim loy yashav ki im b'seiras adinai cheftzai v'seirasa yega yemam v'layla v'haya ka'et shasol al palgemoyim asher pirya yiten b'itay v'aleu layibol v'chol asher yasa yatzliach loy chen harishayim ki im kamoitz asher titfenu ruach al kein lo yakumu rishayim ba'mishpat v'chatayim b'adas tzadikim ki yedei adinai derech tzadikim v'derech rishayim teveid. Happy is one who has not followed the counsel of the wicked, nor stood in the path of sinners, nor sat in the company of the scornful. Rather, that one's delight is in the Torah of God, meditating in God's Torah day and night, and will be like a tree planted by a stream of water that yields its fruit in the season, whose leaf will not wither, and whatever that one does prospers. Therefore, the wicked shall not survive judgment, nor sinners in the assembly of the righteous, for the Lord loves the way of the righteous, but the way of the wicked is doomed. Now I'll recite chapter 23. First we'll say it together in English. You have it in your folders. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me, thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Mizmor LeDavid, Adonai ra'i leyechsar b'nei deshay arbitzeni, almei menuches yinahaleni. Nafshi yesheviv yancheni, v'mag leitzedek leman shemai. Gam ki elech begeit salmaves, loy idara ki ata imadi. Shiftecha mishantecha, heima yinachamuni. Tarech lefanai shulcha neged seirai, dishanta v'shemen reishi kaisi ravaya. Ach toiv v'chesed yudefuni kol yemei chayai, v'shafti beveis Adonai la'irech yamim. We stand now in the time period just after Yom Kippur with the preparation of Sukkot, the holiday of joy. And this is a season, this is a time of joy and happiness. In fact, traditionally there's a limit on the mourning and the sadness that we do during these days because we're already in the Sukkot, in the joyful mode of the holiday. And therefore the Shiva is only 2 days, today and tomorrow, until we begin the Sukkot holiday. And I think this fits very well for Rolla, who would very much appreciate the joy and the happiness and the cheerfulness. And I think she would prefer that we remember her in a joyous way rather than in a sad, mournful type of way. Sukkot, the holiday that begins tomorrow night, is a holiday of unity. We take the lulav and esrog, the 4 kinds, which represent 4 different types of people. Those that are scholars, those that are doers, those that are both, those maybe that are none, and we bring them all together. So it's the idea of unity, of togetherness, of oneness. And where do we celebrate Sukkot? Under one roof. We sit all together under one roof, under one sukkah. As the Talmud says, that all the Jewish people are worthy of sitting under this one roof, this one sukkah. And I think this very much relates to Rolla and to me also on a personal level. So number one, I look at this family, the beautiful family, the 3 children, and then the generations to follow, and they're truly one unit, all connected, all together, all there for their mother, there for each other, just like we're all sitting under this one sukkah, this one roof. And then for the Moskowitz family, and I'm here today, I think less as a rabbi, more as a member of the Moskowitz tribe. Many years ago, I believe it was in the 60s, that my grandparents, Frank and Cynthia, they lived in the same building, literally under one roof of the Ash, Joe and Rolla. And they forged a deep bond and connection and a friendship that lasted forever. Rolla and Joe participated at my parents' wedding in Toronto, and I understand that Rolla talked about the cold winter, Toronto winter on Hanukkah when the chuppah was outside, and for decades later she felt that cold, but really it wasn't cold. Really it was warmth, because the family connection was so deep and so personal. There's a story that's well known in the Moskowitz family, that one time my father was a young child and he decided he had enough of his house, enough of his home, he wanted to run away. So his mother, my grandmother, sat down with him and made a sign, looking for a new home, keeps kosher. And my father went with that little sign and sat by the steps of the building at the entryway. And who picked him up? Rolla Ash. She brought him to her home. I think he just did this because he wanted to play with the train set that you had at home. And he played and he got busy. And then when it was time to go to sleep, he wanted to go back home. So that's just a little anecdote that highlights this deep connection that the families have. And I think the friendship and the connection wasn't just personal, but it's something that had a tremendous benefit for the broader Jewish community in Chicago. In 1975, my parents moved back to Chicago, and they began the Lubavitch Chabad of Illinois. And the first building they're about to purchase, they need an attorney. So my grandfather says, call Joe Ash. And that little advice to call Joe Ash led to hundreds and hundreds, maybe even more, probably countless hours of pro bono work by Joe Ash, with the support of Rolla, and later with the partners George Anos devoted many hours as well, and it continues now with Barry, and I should also mention Larry Friedman as well. So this is a friendship that was both personal and communal. I don't think people know how much credit is due to Joe and to Rolla, how much they gave and they sacrificed of their time and their resources for so many Chabad centers to open up, for so many synagogues to get their zoning approval. Sometimes it was easy and sometimes it was a little bit more complicated. You know, I don't know if, I hope they had some paying customers too, because I don't know how they did that. But we are definitely forever grateful for all their dedication and for their work for the broader community. The Talmud talks about the holiness of Yom Kippur, the holiest day of the year, when all our sins are atoned for. Many wear white, a clean slate. It's a time of purity, of perfection, and of oneness of God, oneness with God. Rolla passed away just after Yom Kippur. What better time is to come back to the Creator in the state of purity, perfection, and spiritual cleanliness. The Talmud says that the righteous that pass on Yom Kippur is like the offerings brought at the temple, at the Mizbech, at the altar in the temple. So I think this is testament to Rolla's character and Rolla's life, that she passed away on this day immediately after Yom Kippur. It's also interesting that it's the 11th day of the month of Tishrei, Yud Aleph, the 11th day of the month of Tishrei, which is the same date of the month that Joe passed away, 11th of Teves. So there's something there about the number 11. And in Hasidic philosophy, the number 11 symbolizes beyond the norm, beyond the ordinary. You know, 10 is perfection, 10 is complete, 10 is whole. If you got 10 points, you know, you're pretty good. But 11 means going above that. And this is descriptive of someone who went above and beyond. When she met someone, she connected with you. Even when it was maybe a business or a simple interaction, it led often to great friendships and connections and something beyond the normal, beyond the ordinary. So this number 11 is a special number, and we have that connection of both Rolla and Joe. I mentioned earlier about the beautiful family unit and the family generations that Rolla built with Joe, and it was something that was so important to her. You see it in the children, you see it in the grandchildren, and I think in the great-grandchildren as well. And this is something that we could all learn from, especially at the time of a funeral, when we kind of think back of the life of someone, not just of their life, but what could we take from their life? What could we learn from Rolla? What could we learn in our own personal life? And I think the message of family and connection is something that is very powerful and very inspiring. So on that note, I would like to call first the children to share some words, and then we'll hear from the grandchildren.
Better here or over here?
All right. I start. Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. About 3 weeks ago, I was having a really deep conversation with Mom. And the last thing she said to me was, God, I hope they say nice things about me at my funeral. And so, Mom, I hope you're looking down on us, because we're about to do that, and the rabbi already has. And you'd be happy to know my lipstick is on. Okay. Mom was a force. She was strong, thoughtful, loving, passionate, and a doer. She grew up on the south side of Chicago with her mom, Pauline, her dad, Jack, and her brother, Eddie. Her dad was an insurance salesman his whole career. Her mother was a homemaker. Mom had a wonderful childhood. She had tons of friends. She was a good student, but most of all, she was a stunner. A few months ago, we were looking at old photo albums from her high school days, and there was a different guy with her in almost every photo, one more handsome than the next, and she looked gorgeous. One photo was a pic of her and some guy looking cozy on the beach, and I asked her, "Who's that guy?" And she said, "Oh, him, some guy I met on vacation." We had fun that day reminiscing about that time in her life, all her friends, all her boyfriends, and their antics.
After graduating from Austin High School, Mom attended the University of Illinois at Navy Pier. Her first job after college was as a secretary to a banker lawyer. This banker lawyer had two young lawyers renting space from him. One happened to be the dashing Joe Ash. Mom and Dad were secretly eyeing each other with no HR rules back then. Their eyeing turned to a budding romance, and Mom and Dad were married in March 1st of 1953 and spent almost 60 wonderful years together before Dad passed.
Shortly after marriage, Mom and Dad had us kids. We grew up in Lincolnwood, and Mom was always there for us, schlepping us to all our activities. She never missed a game, a recital, or anything that mattered. As much as she cared, she was not hovering. We had a lot of latitude to make our own decisions, and because of that, the three of us became fiercely independent. Mom was happy about that because her favorite day of the year was when she put us on the bus, headed to overnight camp for 8 weeks, so happy to rid us for the summer. In early years, we took amazing trips as a family, beach trips, ski trips, Israel trips, and most memorable, our summer trips to Aspen. Aspen was Mom and Dad's sanctuary. They loved their little piece of heaven at the Snowflake Inn. Aspen wasn't just a destination, it was our summer place where we all came together. Mom and Dad, the kids and grandkids. We created so many wonderful memories there.
Mom lived with purpose, and she loved with her whole heart. Although family came first, Mom loved her time volunteering at Bethesda Hospital, and she truly cherished working at the large annual conferences and conventions that came to Chicago each year. I remember so clearly she would put on her black suit, her white blouse, and leave before sunup. She would come home late at night with stories of all the people she met, what went right that day, what went wrong that day, everything that happened. And she always had a bag full of goodies, whether it was candy from the candy show or knickknacks from the hardware show. She could organize a 1,000-person event without breaking a sweat and still make it home to whip up an amazing dinner. Oh, wait, that part's not true. It was rather, "Susan, get on your bike and go to Dairy Queen and pick up some burgers." Or, "Joe, pick up some KFC on your way home, please." Mom worked those shows well into her 80s, and she loved every minute. She instilled in all of us the importance of work, purpose, and bringing home the bacon. Of course, Dad paid her taxes, which she loved.
Along with her work, Mom loved gambling, and I mean it in the best way. She and Dad went to Vegas with friends several times a year and continued her love of casino gambling until the very end. We visited the riverboat casinos and played Pai-Gow poker. She could sit at the table for hours and loved chatting with the dealers and counting her winnings, or maybe lack of chips, her losings. She didn't take wild risks, but she loved the thrill, the strategy, and the fun of it all. We spent many great times sitting side by side at the Pai-Gow poker table, or cautiously eyeing the blackjack table, which I always wanted to lean to. But she liked blackjack, but she always reminded me that it was a little too risky for her taste. After gambling at the tables, she always looked forward to the buffet. She would whisper in my ear to ask the casino host if they could comp us for the buffet, even though we hardly met the minimum gambling requirements. But I did make that request, and every casino host we encountered looked at Mom and greeted her with a huge smile. And along with that smile, he or she would head to the computer terminal and print out complimentary buffet tickets. The buffet was not simply about the food, although she appreciated a good plate. It was the ritual, the satisfaction of a full day of fun, food, and togetherness. Another one of our gambling traditions was the NFL football pool. The football pool was serious business. Our picks weren't due until Sunday morning, but Mom would call me on Thursday to go over every game. She had a quiet intensity in making her picks. She studied hard. She looked at past performances and studied the newspapers. We disagreed a bit, but as you know, Rolla, I always had to lean toward her picks. And although she claimed she did her research, she always picked the Chiefs because she loved the quarterback, the Steelers because that was her mother's hometown, the Giants because she loved New York, and the Indy Colts for no reason. I don't know why she always leaned for the Colts. But she always bet against Dallas. She always loved stock trading. She didn't just dabble, she studied and strategized the best times to buy and sell. She'd sit at her computer all morning, tracking trends, reading reports, and making trades. We would have fun talking stocks and trading along with her. She loved the challenge and thrill. She'd call every morning, "What are you buying today?"
When Dad was still with us, one of his and Mom's favorite things to do together was going to the symphony. It wasn't just an event on the calendar, it was an experience they cherished. After Dad passed, the tradition continued as we stepped in and enjoyed the symphony with her. Mom kept the same seats, which she had for over 40 years, and which she considered the best seats in the house. First row, lower balcony, center. She looked forward to the schedule coming out for the new season and would call me to discuss which concerts she wanted to attend. She loved to watch all the musicians and even developed a personal friendship with one of the concert masters. Mom loved dressing up for the symphony. There was something special about it. She always looked beautiful and was excited for the upcoming evening. We had to make sure that we dressed properly, as this was her requirement for the evening. Mom didn't just listen to the music, she studied it. Beethoven was her favorite, along with Dvorak. She loved others, but she also loved Bach, who she said most people don't have an appreciation for his music. She was not a fan of modern composers. Before every performance, we'd go out to dinner. Early on, we'd go to the Russian Tea Room and other great restaurants after that. She loved sharing a meal and always started off with a Manhattan or a glass of wine. Mom also loved the theater. She and our dad had subscriptions to Steppenwolf, Timeline, and other theaters. They attended shows regularly, even traveling to New York to see Broadway performances. After Dad passed, Mom kept these subscriptions and attended performances throughout the year with friends and with us. Afterwards, she enjoyed a good discussion of the show she just saw. In addition, she also enjoyed going to the movie theater to see live performances from the Met in New York.
Mom stayed sharp until the very end, quick with a witty remark and thoughtful with her insights. She loved the news, a devoted CNN watcher, and a reader of the Sun-Times and the Tribune. She never missed a day, reading cover to cover and completing both crosswords. And Mom had a slew of incredible friends. Friends she met at every decade of her life. New friends that lived in her building, that were there for her and filled her life with love after Dad died. And old friends she's had since we were kids and even before that. Many of those friends are here today. She loved playing bridge, canasta, rummy cube, going to Gibson's, Tavern on Rush, and most of all, hanging out at the Viagra Triangle. Her friends were always there for her until the very end, visiting, calling, and wanting to know how she was doing each and every day. She was also very, very close to her sister-in-law, Bev, and all of her cousins as well.
And through it all, she was devoted to the most amazing man, our dad. Their love was deep and full of quiet strength through the good times and the bad times. She loved him deeply, and that love was evident in every gesture, though some could be a little annoying, like her 3 or 4 calls a day to him at the office. Their bond was the kind that others admired. They were there for each other always, no matter what.
Mom's legacy isn't just in the stories we tell, but it's in the ways she raised us to be strong, to love each other, to live with purpose, and to chase our own passions. So today we honor her, we thank her, and we promise to carry her spirit forward. Rest well, Mom. We will never stop being grateful for all that you have given us and our families. So, Dad, if you're listening up there, I hope you have been enjoying the peace and quiet, because Mom's on her way. And you know she's bringing her to-do list, the crossword puzzles, and her football picks with her. So scoot over on the couch and get ready to be told what to do again, but with the same love that carried us all through life. Hope you both enjoy a good Danish and listen to some classical music together tonight.
Good morning. I am Whitney Ash Zucker, one of Rolla's grandchildren and Barry's daughter. I feel honored to be standing here today among family and closest friends to share a few words about my grandma. One of the greatest gifts of my time with Grandma was the chance to share everyday moments with her. When I moved back to Chicago from New York during COVID, I quickly realized that big family gatherings weren't enough time with my grandma. We had special breakfast dates. While we spoke on the phone often, all of our plans were coordinated over email, in between one of her stock trading sessions or sports bets. We would coordinate where to go for our breakfasts, and every time we would end up at the Greek breakfast diner, Tempo. Every breakfast would follow the same ritual. I would show up at her building. She would yell at me for offering a hand or helping her into the car. And when we got to the restaurant, there was always a line. But Grandma had her way with the hostess, and somehow we would be seated right away in the best booth in the restaurant. We ordered the same egg skillet dish, and she always reminded me, Whitney, it was way too big to finish. Of course, I always finished. And somehow she took hers home for leftovers that lasted her the rest of the week. But the real joy wasn't the food. It was the conversations. She always had something interesting to say about the state of the world, her gambling wins, her wonderful friends, or an interesting show she saw. She checked in my career, motherhood, and made sure I was working and traveling hard enough to have a very full life. She kept me on my toes, never afraid to ask the tough questions, but always brought me back to what mattered most, my health and my happiness. She was an inspiration to me, and every time with her, I felt safe, challenged, and deeply loved. That kind of love wasn't just for me. It extended to all the grandchildren. We feel so lucky to have shared so much of our lives with her. Our family memories began with annual trips to Aspen, Colorado at the Snowflake Inn. Ask anyone in my family, and they'll tell you how much they treasure that place. Not for the celebrity sightings, but because Grandma and Papa Joe made it a second home. It was a place for all the grandchildren to be together. Swimming in the pool, running through the fountains, eating spaghetti and meatballs at Little Annie's, and riding to the top of Aspen Mountain for our annual family photo. And later in life, Grandma got to see all of her grandchildren graduate from high school and college, reach major career accomplishments, attend a few of her grandchildren's weddings, and meet 3 of her great-grandchildren. Even towards the end, Grandma never stopped being herself. For those of you who didn't get to see her last weeks or months leading to her passing, you should know that she wanted her friends to remember her as she always was. Extremely strong, intelligent, witty, stubborn, and absolutely beautiful. Even days leading up to her passing, when I would come over, she would be wearing one of her gorgeous turtlenecks and trousers. Only my grandma would do something like that, am I right? She always looked incredible. I will always remember her in my head in a beautiful white suit set. Grandma, we love you. Thank you for loving us all so deeply, being the matriarch of our family, leading by example and never slowing down, working hard but also enjoying the beauties of life, instilling that nothing is more important than family, and I feel so lucky to have spent 34 years with you. You are so special, and one thing that gives me comfort today is that you are reunited with the love of your life, Papa Joe in heaven.
When I think back about Grandma, what I kept coming back to was how much love and enthusiasm she had up until the very end. Some might describe it as overwhelming at times, like the plume of perfume that would hit you when you'd go into her condo, just have you looking like Kramer every time you visit her apartment. I'm like, Grandma, hey, who needs Claritin when you had 51E by Rolla? But that was her way. And, whenever I was met with you work too hard, you don't eat enough, you live 2,000 miles away, why don't I ever see you? It was kind of her way of saying, I still have so much love and in time to give, like, don't let it go to waste. So between that and, always making you feel like the most important person in the world when you were with her is what we'll always love and remember and cherish most.
Please rise for the memorial prayer. El malei rachamim, mishechein bamreimim, hamsei menucha nechaina, al kanfei ashchina, v'ma'eles kadeshim utayrim kazeir harakia, mazhirim es nishmas, Rivka bas Yaakov, shaholcha leilama, bavur shanachnu mispalalim, badaskaras nishmasa, beganei dentem menuchasa, lachein bal rachamim, yastireha b'seis aknafav li'elamim, Yitzrar b'Yisrael chaim es nishmasa, Adinayu nachalasa, v'tanoach b'shalom al mishkava, v'neimar amen. God, full of compassion, who dwells on high, grant proper repose on the sheltering wings of your presence, the lofty levels of the holy and pure, who shine as the brightness of the sky, onto the soul of Rolla Ash, Rivka bas Yaakov, who has gone to her world, and for whose memory we pray. May her repose be in paradise. May the Master of Compassion bring her under the cover of God's wings and bind her soul in the bond of life. May the Lord be her heritage, and may she repose on a resting place in peace. And let us say, Amen. You may be seated. At this time, we silently ask Rolla forgiveness if there was anything that we didn't treat her with the proper respect or honor that she deserves. We ask her for her forgiveness. It's customary to place some earth from the land of Israel, the Holy Land, which highlights our connection to the land of Israel. And we all pray for the safety and the security of all our brothers and sisters in the Holy Land.
Friends, while we're waiting for the cemetery staff to place the vault cover, I just want to remind everybody that Shiva will be at Linda and David's house. That is 3445 Dauphine Avenue in Northbrook, following our service here until 5. And then we're going to pick back up with Mincha and Marv at 6 o'clock this evening until 9 p.m. And tomorrow, Shacharis, 6:30 a.m. and Mincha at 3 p.m. With visiting hours from 9 to 12 and 1 to 4. Contributions in Rolla's memory can be made to the American Cancer Society or any charity of your choice. And for those who are near the back, there is a register book. If anybody did not yet have a chance to sign in, let the family acknowledge their presence, you can certainly do so. And for those who are on the website, we want to thank you for joining us. You can also sign the virtual register book there as well. Thank you. invite the immediate family to start placing several measures of earth into the grave. Tradition is at least 3. Of course, you do as many as you can. And also tradition is not to hand the shovel from person to person. You give it back in the pot. And friends, you can approach either side of the mound. Just please be very careful around the open grave. Friends, we'll invite everyone else who wishes to participate in the burial to start coming forward inside the point of 2 rows.